Hi, I'm Rob Vischer. When I read my Bible this morning, I wasn't caffeinated. I laid in my bed, propped up by my pillows under my neck, and read as the evil Pharisees tried to trap Jesus. Jesus healed the man with the withered hand on the Sabbath, and the evil Pharisees were outraged. I read it, and the Pharisees kind of seemed cartoonish and flat to me, as did the rest of the passage. It's the same for me sometimes when I read Jesus' stories like the parable of the prodigal son. Maybe it's the familiarity of hearing the story over and over, or the double column print format on really thin pages with verse and chapter numbers. Maybe it's just the parental brain fog from another night of getting less than my optimal 8 hours of sleep. Maybe I need more caffeine, or maybe I need to experience again how refreshing the gospel is. And that's why I'm thankful for Wow God Stories. Every week, before you hear any of the stories, I listen to each one and think about them and write the words for intros like this one. And every time, the Bible comes alive to me again for a few days afterward. Sometimes I wonder if it has the same effect on you. That's why days like today are special. Jarrad Grooms listens to Wow God Stories every week, and he decided to reach out and tell us his story. And like so many men and so many of our listeners, his story starts out with a story about his father.
My name's Jarrad Grooms. I was born and raised in Amarillo, Texas. I would say that the beginning of my story, the way it starts in my head, would be April 14th, 2003. And so I was 10 years old. I had just turned 10 about 2 weeks before that. And my dad was an avid Harley-Davidson rider. He just absolutely loved motorcycles. He was an electrician by trade. And then after he'd get off, he'd go ride his motorcycle. And he was in a ministry with the church and all of that. And so, that evening was just like every other night. We had dinner together, my sister, my mom, and I, and my dad, and he went out to ride his motorcycle, and I probably don't remember what I went on to do, play video games or do something, and went to lay down, and he wasn't home quite yet, which was a little bit unusual because it was probably about 9 o'clock, and he was usually in by then, but I was laying in bed almost asleep, and I heard the phone ring. And so I remember getting up, leaving my bedroom, walking through the kitchen, and saw my sister had grabbed the phone. And so I kind of turned around and walked off and was headed back to lay back down. And I remember started having tears in my eyes. And I thought to myself, I think my dad is dead. And, for a 10-year-old kid, that's kind of a weird revelation. Literally within probably 3 seconds of thinking that thought, I just hear my mom just scream at the top of her lungs. And so that kind of reaffirmed, again, I'm only 10, but in my little juvenile mind, that kind of reaffirmed what I had already thought. And so I remember, kind of rushing out back to the living room den area and asking my sister what's going on. And she had said that our dad got in a wreck. Her boyfriend had just, if this isn't God, I don't know what is. Her boyfriend just actually rode up on the wreck. He was there before the police were. He was on his way home, leaving our house, and just happened to see it. And so, he pulled over and got out. And so he was there talking to us, and he was like, hey, everything's okay. He's responsive. He's talking, all these things. And so, hearing that from him, it was a relief. Obviously that's a huge relief to hear. And I remember my mom leaving us at the house so she could go to the crash site, and my grandmother came over to meet us. And, we sat there for probably 15, 20 minutes with my grandma, and, she's like, everything's okay. I've talked to your mom, we'll go to the hospital in a little bit, and, we'll just kind of figure it out when we get there. And so I remember riding to the local hospital here, Baptist St. Anthony's, and we pull in the parking lot, and this is probably, I would say, an hour and a half after everything had happened. It's before 11, but after 10, so sometime in that time frame. And there was probably 20 to 25 people from our church standing outside. And so again, as a little kid, I'm like, this is strange. I knew my dad was involved in the church, and he was the children's pastor and all those types of things, but it just thought it was odd. I was like, I don't think everything is okay if all these people are standing out here. And, they walk us in, and I see my mom and my aunt and some of my other family, and they lead us into this room. And I would later find out it's called a cry room, which I think most hospitals probably have it. That's where the doctors come in and, unfortunately give the bad news. But we didn't see any doctors. It was just my mom and my family. And I sat down on her lap and, I still remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, the words that your father went to be with Jesus. And, at 10, it's hard to understand fully. My sister, who was 17 at the time, I mean, she took off running out of the room and, my uncle had to go get her. And I just remember just kind of laying my head in my mom's chest and just not really crying and not really understanding what was going on. I mean, I understood that, I understood what death was, but I didn't understand the ramifications and the life-changing that was fixing to occur from just that one statement.
This is the obituary of Jarrad's dad. Quote, Jarrad D. Grooms, 37, of Amarillo, died Monday, April 14, 2003. Services will be at 10 a.m. Thursday at Southwest Baptist Church. Mr. Grooms was born in Jacksonville, Florida. He moved to Amarillo more than 30 years ago from Alabama. He was a journeyman electrician and had worked for Coronado Electric and Carver Electric. Mr. Grooms was active with the children's ministry as Southwest Baptist, Oasis Motorcycle Ministry, Golden Spread, Emmaus Community, and Promise Keepers. He married Paige Stembridge in 1990 at Amarillo. Survivors include his wife, one daughter Ashley, two sons Nicholas and Jarrad. When Jarrad's dad died, Jarrad collapsed into himself. He stopped wanting to go outside, and his demeanor changed from outgoing and friendly to stoic and introverted.
My dad was killed by a drunk driver. And so I'd kind of sworn off drugs and alcohol and, just all those things. And it always said, I'll never do these things. I'll never do these things. Well, the first day of freshman year, my best friend and I see one of our friends in the bathroom, and he's like, hey, glad to see you guys are here. He was a year older than us, so it'd been a year since we had saw him. And he was like, man, so glad to see you guys. Here's some hydrocodones. Have y'all ever taken these? And we don't have any idea. I mean, we're 14 years old. We don't know what these do. And he was like, oh man, they make you just feel super good. Don't worry about it. You won't get caught taking them. Y'all be good. And he ended up giving us 6 500 milligram ones a piece. And he was like, hey, just take these throughout the day. You don't have to take them all at once. And let me know if you want some tomorrow. In our little kid minds, we're like, oh man, what a nice guy. What a pal that is, when he was really a drug dealer that was just trying to get us to buy stuff from him. But again, you don't think those thoughts at that time. And so I remember, we both looked at them and they were just little bitty, Tylenol looking pills. And we were like, what? He said not to take all 6, but they're so little, there's no way that taking all 6 can hurt us. We're big football players and all the things. And so we take all 6 together in the bathroom. And, we go our separate ways. I have history. He has French, but they're next door to each other. And I remember him walking out of there and me walking out of the class. And I mean, it takes maybe 30, 40 minutes for him to kick in. And that's about how long a class is in high school. And, so we were just starting to feel the effects when we walked out and, both looked at each other and just had the biggest smiles on our face. And we're like, man, why haven't we felt like this before? Like, this is literally the best feeling I've ever had in my life. Like, I wasn't thinking about my dad. I wasn't thinking about being angry. It just made me feel at peace. It made me want to interact with people. I'm kind of an introverted person as is, and this made me extroverted. This made me want to go talk to everybody and be in the center of attention and do all these things. And so no harm, no foul your first time, you think. And obviously I was not physically addicted that very first time, but it probably took me that time or maybe 2 more times to become mentally addicted. And I mean, I am 14 years old, already had some severe trauma in my life. And so when you have something like that happen at such a young age, I feel like it's almost not a destiny that you turn to drugs, but it's like almost like everybody else's story. It's like, look, I had a death in the family. I had a car wreck, a tragic thing happened, turned to drugs. And so by the end of our first semester, so what is that, maybe 4 months or so, we were smoking meth in the Amarillo High bathrooms. We were taking hydrocodones every single day, Oxycontin, morphine, doing cocaine in class. I mean, it literally went from a couple of kids who had never done any narcotics to being full-blown junkies within 3 or 4 months. And I mean, it kind of just took on a life of its own, as many addictions do. We were selling drugs in school. We were selling drugs outside of school just to get drugs. I mean, it was one of those things that we were like, dude, we've got to find some way to get more money, because if we just ask our parents every day for $50, that's not going to work out. They're going to figure this out. We're still trying to, not get caught and all these things. And, I got so bad. I mean, it probably took no more than 6 months to get caught, if that. I mean, when I'm smoking meth in my childhood bedroom, when my mom is home, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And, so that started and it just made it really tough, man. It really drove a wedge between my mom and I, as you can imagine. She was obviously incredibly against it and did everything in her power. I mean, she truly did, to stop it. She would, take my phone, take my car, not give me money, not allow me to leave, just all of the things. But when you don't have a father in the house, it's kind of hard to enforce that in some boys, because I mean, I'm thinking in my head, what is it that you can do to me? You can't physically stop me from leaving. And so that's what I'm going to do. You can say you're not leaving all you want. And I never touched her or anything like that. It never got to that point. But, in my mindset, I'm like, I will just walk out this door. You have to go to sleep at some point. And so I will leave.
Sadly, nobody could stop him from ruining his life. And he didn't have the internal maturity or any of the external incentives to make any changes.
I think my mom thought maybe once I got out of high school, that would be the end of things. And, I'd kind of turn a new leaf, go to college and do that. But that was never really something I wanted to do. I never really thought about that. And so, everything just intensified after that, because now I don't have to go to school anymore. I don't have anything to do. So, I moved with one of my friends to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and, that's with his family. And we try and stay down there for a few months and just end up missing home. And so we come back here and, don't have money, don't have anything. And so I'm actually stealing from my family. I'm stealing great grandmother's rings. I'm stealing firearms, whatever I can get my hands on, I'm taking them. And I had taken a firearm from my mom one day, and, I knew she would call the police and report it stolen and tell them it was me and everything like that. And that's exactly what happened. And, I evaded police for a few months, but was seeing my aunt one day at a boutique that she owned, and about 10 cops came in and arrested me. And so that was kind of my first run-in with the law. And I was put on probation, and it scared me. You know what I mean? I was like, man, this is pretty intense. I'm here, I'm 18, I'm newly 18, in a pod with people going to prison for a long time, or, just your normal jail crowd. And so it was a little bit of an eye opener, but it wasn't enough. It still wasn't kind of what I was wanting to do, was stop. And so I had checked myself into this treatment center called Teen Challenge.
Jarrad can't say much, but I can. I didn't sign an NDA. And if you have young children listening, you might want to skip this part. Stanley Marsh III inherited part of his grandfather's oil fortune. Over the years, he was a well-known multimillionaire who funded multiple eccentric art projects, including Cadillac Ranch, a display of 10 spray-painted Cadillacs buried at an angle nose down in concrete near a highway. 10 boys accused Stanley Marsh of paying them to perform sexual favors. They were each given large financial settlements by Stanley Marsh's estate. Stanley Marsh was arrested and prosecuted, but after a series of strokes, he died, and a judge dismissed the criminal charges against him due to him not being alive anymore. Jarrad was one of the boys who was paid out.
It's a super intense Christian-based rehab program. You go to church 11 times a week. You have Bible classes for 4 hours a day, and then you work for the other 4 hours a day. So I can't get into very many specifics due to an NDA that I have signed, but before I had went to this Teen Challenge program, I was involved in a lawsuit here locally. Me and 10 of my friends were, and well, before that, it wasn't a lawsuit. I'm sorry. We were involved in some things here, and then I went to this Teen Challenge program. And when I came home during a Thanksgiving pass, that's when I had realized that a bunch of my friends that I was involved in all this stuff with were were involved in a lawsuit. And they were like, look, we really need you. We've been looking for you everywhere. You're kind of the key piece to this thing, you and another young gentleman, because of all the things you guys know. I'll share a little bit with you. Like I said, I can't get into very many specifics, but it's a famous artist in Amarillo named Stanley Marsh. He's responsible for the Cadillac Ranch and some different things like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's kind of a weird thing that people from all over the world come and see. It's strange. It's just Cadillacs buried in the ground and you can spray paint on them. I mean, it's a weird thing, but literally it's busy 24 hours a day. That's kind of the biggest thing he's known for. The other thing that he's known for is basically what we were in the lawsuit for. So my friends and I, there's a bunch of us that were sexually abused before we were 18 from this. And so that's kind of what it stems from. So however you kind of want to piece all of this together, that's really probably as specific as I can be. It's been a long time, but again, we did all sign NDAs that were for life. And so I just don't want to say too terribly much and get in trouble. And so I come home from Teen Challenge for that pass, and the first person I talk to tells me about this lawsuit. And he's like, man, look, this attorney wants to talk to you. He's a huge attorney out of Houston. His name's Tony Busby. He's like a real famous lawyer. He beat BP. He, did all these great things class action wise. And I'm like, in my young mind, I'm like, well, absolutely. I mean, like, I do not care about justice. I care about what comes, because we're suing him civilly. We're not suing him criminally. We're going to let the police take care of the criminal charges, which they ended up doing as well. But, I am 19 years old. I care about the gold at the end of the rainbow. And so, I obviously joined, and, my family did not want that. Nobody wanted me to do this. A, because they didn't want all of that kind of trauma to be thrown back up again. But B, because they knew we do not need to give this kid however much money. He is just barely a few months sober, and he's really forced to be sober because he's in this treatment facility. And so, reluctantly, they not allowed me, but just kind of gave me their blessing to get on. And so, here I am in this treatment. I go back. Things have all kind of changed because now they know I'm involved in this lawsuit. So I'm having to fly to Houston. I'm having to fly to Dallas. I'm having to come back to Amarillo, having to do just a bunch of different things that they don't normally allow you to do. But they, gracefully worked with me and everything. And remember, we were in deliberations for, probably 10 hours, 12 hours, stuck in a room. Each of us were in our own separate room because they didn't, we couldn't hear what the other amount was. Everybody was getting something different. They didn't want all these kids comparing it, everything. And, we're in this room and he comes in and they've all been what I considered low balls. And, they were like, do you want to accept or not? And I'm like, no, we're early in the day. Let's keep this thing rolling and see what we can figure out. And so by the end of the day, they finally came and they were like, look, we're 11, almost 12 hours in to y'all sitting in these little cubicle rooms. I think this is the best we're going to do. And I think it's a really good offer. This is from the first 4 plaintiffs. We have another 4 plaintiffs we're suing, and that will come later on. And so, I think we should do this. And so I accept, and, everybody does. We all fly home our separate ways. I unfortunately have to go back to this treatment facility. But now it went from I was wanting to stay sober and, live a good life. And when you're in church that many days, literally 11 times in 7 days, and that's been going on for 8.5 months, I mean, it's hard not to fall in love with Jesus. I mean, it's hard not to, to just not understand. We literally worked on workbooks on 66 books of the Bible while you're there. I mean, and these are thick test prep books. And I mean, it was a cool thing now for me today. It was, again, not fun back then. And so I went from doing all these things to just fantasizing about this money, and what I'm going to do when I get it. I'm going to buy this house and these cars, and we're going to go to these trips. And, again, I'm not even 21 years old, and I'm fixing to be handed life-changing money, complete life-changing money. And so I'm trying to stay calm, but it's really not working well. And I come in one day from being at work, and there's mail on the bed, and I open it up, and it's the check. And I mean, there it is. It's all at zeros, all the numbers. And I'm like, I just start crying. I don't know what else to do. I'm a little kid. I'm freaking out now. And so I make what turns out to be a really, really bad decision, and I leave the program. I had maybe 4 weeks left, maybe a month at the absolute most. and I decide to leave. Keep in mind, I'm supposed to be here for probation from stealing that gun. I am not allowed to leave. And so I sneak away. I'm in the hospital. I fake that I need to go to the hospital because the staff doesn't come with you. They just send people who've been in the program for a long time as like your quote unquote accountability partner. And I tell this kid, I'm like, look, man, you just leave because I'm leaving. I'm calling a taxi and I'm going to go buy a car and I'm out of here. And he's like, man, I wish you wouldn't do this. Don't do this. And I'm like, look, man, I've made up my mind. And so I get a taxi cab and I'm in Midland, Texas, and he takes me to the BMW, or he takes me to the bank first. I get a cashier's check for $98,000, pull up at the BMW store. Again, I've been in treatment for 9 months. I am just freaking out right now. I got $100,000 in my hand and I put it down on a brand new BMW X6 and do the paperwork on it and then just leave. So 12 hours ago, I woke up with nothing. And then I had a check on my bed. Then I went to the hospital. Now I'm in a $100,000 BMW, fleeing Midland, running from probation.
A young drug addict with life-changing money was running from the law in a new BMW. Dave Ramsey, a financial guy I used to work for, often said,
I run for about 8 months. I'm staying in different hotels and, we're all over the place, traveling just all over Texas, really. We didn't go anywhere extravagant, but, just trying to party it up. I mean, I had a bad drug habit before then, but I didn't realize that it could get worse. And I mean, it got insane. I switched to heroin because the pills were just not doing it for me anymore. Again, story of a lot of people's addiction. The pills get too expensive. They're not strong enough. And so I switched over to heroin, and then I was just sleeping too much from the heroin. And so I started smoking a lot of meth again to kind of wake me up. And then I'd be too awake from the meth. And so I would start taking Xanax bars. And that was literally all day long, every day, all day. And so these are kind of the things I'm doing with my money. We're just, we're driving to Austin, hanging out down there for months on end at these different hotels, doing all these drugs, just partying. And I'm not thinking that I am not having money come in, because Lord knows I'm not going to work a minimum wage job while I have all this money in my bank account. And, I'm just watching it slowly dwindle away. And I'm like, man, this is getting intense. I need to slow down, but at this point, it's too powerful to slow down. I've created a monster that I can't maintain. And I realized that in active addiction. And so one of the smarter things that I did is I went and I leased a condo for 2 years in Lubbock, Texas, and ended up paying cash for that. Paid about $40,000 to have this place for 2 years, fully furnished. And I did that because I'm like, look, I'm going to run out of money and I'm not going to have a place to live. And so if I have my nice car, which I have, and I have this house in Lubbock, at least I have a roof over my head and a vehicle to drive. And it kind of gets to a point where, I'm under $100,000 now. And I kind of think, let's just do this until we die. Let's just spend this $100,000. There's no way that this drug habit isn't going to kill me. There's literally no way it's not going to kill me. It's just too much in such a small amount of time that I have got to probably die from it. The human body cannot sustain so many depressants and uppers throughout the day at such high quantities. Heroin was very expensive. It was $200 a gram where I was at, and I was buying 3 grams a day, and would do a lot of it and then have a little bit for the morning and then do it all over again. I was spending, $100, $150 a day on Xanax, same thing on meth. I mean, I'm spending $700, $800, $900 a day. And so I just know it's coming to an end. I can feel it in my spirit. I can feel my body slowing down. The mental clarity is almost gone. I mean, I'm a literal walking vegetable at this point, more often than not. I'm back in Amarillo with one of my friends, and I just bought an older 4Runner that I was going to soup up, go snowboarding, do all these things with. And we do some heroin on the side street by his house, and we're driving, and I fell asleep at the wheel. Praise God, we were in a neighborhood. We were not going fast. The other car was not going fast, but they did hit us. Everybody was okay. Nothing was wrong. We went and hid the drugs that we had. But again, I'm on the run. This is how I get caught. And so, I tell my best friend, I'm like, look, I'm going to jail. for sure, because I've got all these warrants out for my arrest. I've been running from probation. I get arrested, of course. I bond out before probation can figure anything out. It takes them a couple of days because if you have a probation violation in Texas and you go to jail, they can hold you there without a bond. And so I ended up calling a lawyer on the way to jail. The cop allowed me to have my phone, hired him over the phone to represent me, called the bail bonds company, gave him my credit card number, and told him to get me out of here. And thank God they did. The next day, a couple of weeks go down, and my lawyer's like, look, this is your one and only chance to not go to prison, is you're going to have to go to rehab at this place called Dovetree in Lubbock, Texas. And so I reluctantly, I want to run again, and I really do, but I'm running out of money. And so I'm like, I can't do that. So I pay for this rehab out of pocket. It cost me $54,000 to go there. I didn't realize it at the time, but basically I paid $50,000 to not go to jail for a couple of months because that's all it would have been. So in hindsight, it may have been better to just bite the bullet, but that's not how the story goes.
It's wild that Jarrad still sounds like he misses the money. But as you'll see, his bank account being drained wasn't necessarily a bad thing.
So I go to this rehab and I am not doing well. Coming off all these drugs, it takes me 16 days to get from detox to the actual facility. And then when I get to the facility, I don't sleep for 19 days. I mean, I probably fell asleep here and there, but I was essentially in psychosis. I mean, I wasn't allowed in groups. I had a room completely alone when everybody else had 5 or 6 roommates. I was having seizures, not every day, but, probably 5 seizures within that 3-week time frame. I am not well. And so they finally kind of get me back on track to where I can, semi-function. And I end up getting out of that rehab, completing it and doing okay there. And, I've got a job in Lubbock. I'm sober. I'm doing well. I have to go to Houston for this lawsuit. And so they're flying me down there. I sit next to a lawyer on the plane, not my lawyer, just a lawyer. And he orders a Jack and Coke. And, I've been to AA and all these things throughout all these rehabs. And I'm like, I've never had a problem with alcohol. I have a problem with opiates. So I bet I can drink a Jack and Coke with this guy and enjoy it. And so that's what I do. Drink Jack and Coke on the plane to Houston. I end up getting out from the plane, buying a bottle of Jack Daniels, finishing half of it, barely make it to the meeting, cancel the second day of the meeting, fly home to Amarillo and buy 150 hydros. And so within, maybe 3 weeks, I'm back on the needle again because the hydros just aren't cutting it. I got fired from my job. I'm driving home from Amarillo after seeing my family who thinks I'm sober back to Lubbock. I just picked up some heroin in Amarillo and I'm driving and I'm doing 100 miles an hour down the highway like a complete fool and get pulled over. What a surprise, and have all this heroin on me. And so I get arrested again, have to go to Plainview's jail, which is just a tiny little place, bond out the next day. But now I have a heroin charge. Before, all my troubles had been what we call Texas state jail felonies. And so those are like the lowest tier of felony that you can receive. The maximum amount of time is 2 years. And so now I have a 3rd degree felony, which is 2 years minimum to 10 years. And it's like actual prison that I have to go to. And so I'm like, man, I take off running again and do that for another 6 or 7 months. I was on probation for 4 years, which is 48 months. And I reported 5 times in 48 months. So, I did a whole lot of running in between all these time frames, just committing small petty thefts to keep up this addiction. Because by now I am long gone from the money. It's long gone. So, we're just selling drugs and doing petty things to get money. And I get caught doing some of those petty things, stealing tools from a Home Depot, and get arrested and get shipped out to Plainview. And I have to, he's like, look, man, you've been on probation for, again, 4 years. This is how I found out I'd only reported 5 times from my lawyer. And he was like, the judge is going to laugh at us if we ask for probation. Like, you're going to prison. You're going. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to sit in this jail until you go to prison. So we do that. I ended up signing for 4 years, TDCJ. Before I'd only ever been to county jail, little stuff like that. And so, of course, you hear all the stories about like, you're a little white boy, you're going to have to join a gang to survive and, all those things. And so like I am if people tell you they're not scared to go to prison, like, I'm not calling them liars, but I think you might be lying. Because it is a terrifying thing. You go from doing the things that you love to do to now you're a ward of the state and you're in their house now. And it's a real place where real things happen. And so I'm terrified. My family's terrified, but you can't go in there and show that. You can't do any of that. So I get there and, kind of put on this persona. I don't try to act like a tough guy by any means, but I let it be known that I won't just lay down for anything either. I'm at a place called Middleton, which is a intake unit, and then they ship you out after that to your different units. And so I'm kind of getting along pretty well there. I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'd like to stay here. I'm comfortable here. I understand the layout here. I have made friends here. It's a terrible place as far as or quote unquote privileges in Texas prison. They don't have anything there. They don't have TVs in your cell. They don't have radios. They don't have free weights, anything like that. But again, I am comfortable here. And so I'm, kind of starting to pray a little bit. That seed that was planted in all those early years at church with my family, through teen challenges, rehab is kind of, I'm kind of starting to hear God again.
In the solitude of prison time, not only was Jarrad starting to hear his Heavenly Father's voice again, he was about to hear the voice of a physical father figure encouraging him from inside the prison walls.
They called me to the warden's office one day, told me that I had been granted that, and that I was going to work in the law library. And, that turned out to be all God. Again, I didn't put in for it. The law library is the number one place in probably most prisons that you want to be. And the officer that ran it, he treated us like his own sons. He did not treat us like prisoners. He's not there anymore, so I can say this and not get him in any trouble. He would bring us pizza. He would bring us protein powder. He would bring us creatine. It was awesome. It was those little bitty things like that. He would bring us bath and body lotion so we could have actual real lotion to put on our bodies and just took care of us, always looked out for us. And I'm fixing to see parole and I'm like, I'm telling my mom, I'm coming home, and I'm just naive. I don't know how any of it works. I'm hopeful that I'm coming home. And so I call her one night and I ask her, did you hear from parole or did you look it up? Because you can look it up on the website. And she's like, I did. And I can hear it in her voice. I didn't make it. I could tell just from the literal I did. I was like, oh, I'm staying here. And normal Jarrad would have broken the phone, started a fight. Just lost it. And I remember it clear as day. I'm just standing there staring at the TV, and there's a football game going on. I think it was the Patriots and somebody, and everybody's being loud. And I just think this is the time that I could make a change. As I'm listening to my mom tell me I didn't make it, the reasons I didn't make it, and as clearly as I can hear you talking, I literally heard the voice of God say, it's not your time. And it gave me the chills. It made me start tearing up. And I told my mom, I didn't want to cut her off. And I told her, I said, I just heard from God. It's not my time. And, she's kind of getting emotional. I'm getting emotional because she's not used to hearing those words from me. She's not used to hearing me speak of the Lord. And so, I think in her mind, she's like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Is it happening? And so from that moment forward, I kind of quit running with some of the people I was running with in there, who weren't like doing crazy things, but a lot of gambling, stuff like that, and kind of stepped away from some of these things. And I asked her to send me a Bible. She sent me a Bible through the church. She sent me a Joyce Meyer's devotional book and a Jesus Calling book. And, I started doing that every day and kind of made my own routine of waking up, drinking coffee, and just starting in the Bible, then going to the Joyce Meyer's book, and then going to the Jesus Calling. And then I would read the Bible again in the evening and started, kind of trying to get into the church there. And they had different religious classes. And so I started taking those. And man, it was like the joy that I was finding in there was inexplainable. It kind of reminds me of Paul. Paul writes about being in prison and he's happy. They're singing. The guards are like, what are these guys doing? They're literally chained together and they're singing and praising God. And that's what it felt like. I remember telling my family, I feel better and have more peace right now locked behind these walls than I did the day I got that check in the mail and had it, what I thought was the world at my fingertips. And so that carries on for quite some time. You have to wait every 9 months you see parole. And so that goes on for, 6-7 months. And I've really rooted myself into the word, into prayer, into, slowing down and almost stopping, trying to stop the cussing, not doing any, not looking at the porn books they pass around in prison, and, just really trying to give up those things. There's drugs going on. I'm not doing any of the drugs. I'm not drinking any of the alcohol. And I'm telling myself, if I can't abstain from those things in here, there's no way I'm going to abstain from them when I get home. And so, I really made it a point to not do any of those things. And so I come up for parole again, and I'm supposed to be off work on like some random weekday for commissary and go to store and do some things. And my boss calls me into work. And I'm like, oh, I might be in trouble. I wonder if I didn't do something the day before, mess something up. And he's got tears in his eyes. And he's like, you're going home. Don't tell anybody I told you. And, kind of gives me like a little side hug, which obviously they're not supposed to do. But he's like, I'm very proud of you. God is doing a marvelous work in your life. And, I can see it all. And so I rush and call my mom, and I can't tell her I made parole because I'm not supposed to know. And so I'm like, look it up. And she's like, I just looked yesterday. I'm like, look it up, please. I try not to be rude, but I'm like, super excited. And she looks it up and she's like, there you are, and so she wasn't nearly as excited as I was. She's excited to get her son out of that scary place, but then the fear of, oh gosh, they're about to let him out.
His mother's fear about jailhouse religion was legit. Many prisoners find God in prison, then forget about him and go back to the same lifestyle once they're out.
I formed a really good relationship with my stepdad while being inside of there, and he owns a business here in Amarillo called Hot Tub Doctor. It's a hot tub sales shop and repair shop and sauna retailer. And him and I have all these grand plans of like, I'm gonna come work for you and I'll run it one day and, all these things. But my mom isn't there yet. Steve only knows me sober and in the Lord and doing good things. He's never seen the past. They got married when I was in prison. And so, he doesn't know that version of me. And so, but I think that, obviously that was God as well, because it gave me a hope maybe, and his encouragement of like, there was never any doubts in his mind. There was doubts in my family, my mom, my sister, my grandparents. I mean, there was plenty of doubters, but none in him. And so, I get home, and I come home on a Wednesday, and I start working Thursday. He's like, you're going to work the next day. And I'm like, well, I guess here we are. I've been working for free for the last 2 years. I might as well get paid to do it. And so I start at the bottom, man. I start at the absolute bottom. I am draining and cleaning hot tubs, repairing hot tubs, doing all that stuff. That's not what I want to do. I want to, be the face of the company. I want to run everything, expand the business, things like that. But I can't do it yet. I got to prove myself. And so I do that for several months. Had kind of vowed to myself, like, stay away from women, stay away from old friends, just get a base. I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm fresh out of prison. I live with my parents at 24 years old. I don't have a car. I don't have anything. What type of woman is that going to attract? Not the type that I want. And so I stay out and I do really well in January. So I get out in March. In January, I get my own apartment, have a car, have all these things now.
Jarrad's life looked pretty good and pretty disciplined on paper. He was employed, living on his own, had a car, and he even started getting up early in the mornings to do cold plunges.
We sell saunas, we sell cold plunges at my business, and I'm going to do the cold plunge in the morning, and it's 5:45, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving and I'm fixing to pull in, and one of my closest friends works for me, and his car's in the parking lot. Well, we're 3 hours away from work. But I wasn't at work the day before, again, because I was in counseling and dealing with all that. And I'm like, well, maybe his car's broke down. Maybe I had to get a ride or something. And so I text him. I'm like, are you already at the office? And he's like, yeah, I'm just sitting in the parking lot, LOL. And I'm thinking, like, what are we doing, dude? Like, why are you at the office? We used to work out do jujitsu together early in the morning. And so that's why I'm fixing to text him, like, why are you not in jujitsu? And before I'm fixing to pull back up, and he texts me and he was like, I'm going to kill myself. I love you. Tell everyone I love them. And like, I just sit at the stop sign, which is maybe 60 feet from my business. And I'm reading it like 10 times. And I'm like, what is this dude talking about? Like, there's no way this is a real text message. And so like, I'm texting back and I'm turning onto my street, which again, I mean, I can see my business. I am 60, 65 feet away. And I hear like the faintest of like what was a gunshot, but it didn't sound like a gunshot. And so I'm like, was that a car backfiring? As I'm processing and I'm pulling into the parking lot, because like, you don't want that to be real. You know what I mean? After getting that text and things like that, you don't want it to be real. And so I hear the shot, and within maybe a second and a half, I pull in the parking lot, and sure enough, there he is. And he's lying on the ground. There's a gun right next to him. It's a big rifle. And, it's 5:45 in the morning. I just came here to do a cold plunge. My counselor just told me yesterday I'm doing terrible and need to leave. And now this is going on. And so I rush over there to him, and I don't want to get too graphic or anything, but I mean, there's blood coming out. There's things that are out that should not be out. And I check his pulse, and he doesn't have a pulse. And so I'm like freaking out. I throw the gun away, rush inside, call the police on my business phone, call my parents on my personal phone, because again, my family owns this business. And so they know him very well. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. He just took his life. I'm here. I'm seeing everything. And so the police come, my parents get there. My sister gets there because she works for me as well. And, it is just a whole scene. I mean, it is terrible. And at the time, I am just numb. Everyone around me is bawling their eyes out, and I'm just like blankly staring. I remember just watching the cars pass on the highway. The sun's starting to come up a little bit. I'm starting to kind of look at the sun, and I'm not feeling anything. I'm not thinking anything. I am just out of it. And his brother, which is our, again, jiu-jitsu coach, pulls up, and, he doesn't believe me when I called him and told him he needed to come here. He didn't want to believe that. And he gets there, and I have to hold him back. And then their mom gets there, and I have to hold her back. And, it's just, I'm thinking in my head, and I am, cussing God out, and I am like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? Not necessarily to deserve this, I guess, but like, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on. Like, I just need a break from all this trauma. So I go sit on the beach. There's a place in Galveston, it's called East Beach. And it's incredibly far away from the pier and all the craziness. And it's like a local spot that not everybody goes to. And so I go there, and I'm like the only one there, praise God. Man, and I sit there for what I thought was just like maybe 20 or 30 minutes. It was about 4 or 5 hours, and just in silence, nothing going on but the waves. And I'm just watching everything. I'm looking at the ocean. I can still smell the salt water and feel the sand. And I kind of agree right then and there. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to kill myself. This is where we are. My family will understand. They know I'm hurting, all the things. And so I'm driving, and, I'm crying and just trying to, cope with all these thoughts. And I look over, and there's this church. It was sort of by East Beach, but I kind of accidentally turned on the wrong place. And I'm driving by this church, and there's a huge hand-painted sign that said, God loves you. And I just laugh. And I'm like, I don't know how. I don't know how. And I go back to the hotel, and there's this saying in AA where it's like, if you want to use tomorrow. Use tomorrow. And what it means is, it's like, basically, if you want to make a bad decision, don't do it today and see how you feel tomorrow. Because chances are you're going to wake up and be better, and you're not going to want to use. And so, I told myself, I'll take my own life tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. And I go, and I'm talking to this girl on the suicide hotline. We're texting back and forth. And she was a literal angel. I am convinced, because just the things that she was saying to me, it was, if it were God talking to me, it was exactly what I needed to hear, and it wasn't, little one word. She was sending paragraphs on paragraphs, and we talked for 3 hours, back and forth. And, I'm like trying to get some sleep now. It's probably 2:00 in the morning, and I can't sleep. And I go sit on this balcony, and one of my best friends who's in the ministry had sent me this song called I Surrender several months prior. And I'd listened to it a few times. I'm like, I don't really like this song very much. I'm not going to listen to it anymore. And something told me, just turn that song on. And so, again, it's probably 4:00 in the morning. It's super dark outside. The ocean's right across the street from my hotel. So I'm just watching the waves, and I turn on I Surrender. And man, I immediately realized why he sent me that song. And just had realized that I was still, even with the knowledge that I thought I had, I was still trying to be God in my own life. I'm still trying to make all the decisions and tell God thank you when something good happens, but make sure that I'm the one making these good things happen, and I'm trying to rely on my own power to get over this suicide I just witnessed. I am trying everything in my own power, and I'm not surrendering anything, absolutely anything. I listened to that song until 11 a.m. So I was on that balcony for 7 hours, crying, laughing, thinking of my friend that died, all the good memories we had together, and realize I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to surrender. And so I end up leaving out of there, come back to Amarillo, and, I'm very heavy in the Word. I'm very heavy on sermons in church. And so throughout that time, I was very focused on the Lord. And, I'm like, every time I get very focused on the Lord, really good things happen. And every time that I start to veer away from it or, put it down a little bit, very bad things happen. And so I'm have this revelation in my head, and I'm like, that's the missing link. That's the missing link is I'm not surrendering, and I'm trying to control everything. And when I allow God's presence to control everything, to the best of my ability, I'm only human, things go quite well for me. Life is life, and life will always life, regardless how close you are with the Lord. I'm not ignorant to think anything different, but just for my personal self, I just feel like I can deal with things better in that realm. And so it was just a really awesome moment, man, to see how he can take somebody who's been in prison, who's, just hated him with everything in his might, into a force for Christ. So, that's pretty much where we're at today.
Currently, Jarrad seems to be doing really well. He's now the general manager at Hot Tub Doctor. By the way, the business is rated 4.8 out of 5 stars on Google. Not bad. He's also sober and starting a ministry for men. I'll let him tell you more about it.
The ministry I started was with a friend of mine named Antonio Graves. He's a local pastor here in Amarillo, and it's called Full Armor Ministries, and representative, wearing the full armor of God at all times. And, it's just it's a group of guys that are there for each other, first and foremost, hold each other accountable. But our goal is to impact the community in being, whether it be young teenager or maybe young adults, people that are struggling in, either drugs and addiction, like some of us have in the group, or if they're in the Word, so too often they get saved in the church and then they're like, now what? Now what do I do? I don't know the next steps. And we want to be that next step. We want to help guide them through the Word, kind of be mentors in their early Christianity. It's something that we think can have a real impact.
When I listen to Jarrad talking about ministry, it doesn't sound like he wants to change the world. It sounds like he wants every man in his community to feel like they have somebody. He doesn't want anyone to feel like the little kid who lost his dad in a motorcycle accident. After his dad died, Jarrad was confused, hurt, and angry about the lot God had given him. He tried to numb the pain of his loss by seeking short-term pleasure with pills and money and more drugs, then money again, then a BMW, then heroin, and then even a good job at his stepdad's business. None of it worked until he surrendered his life to his true father. Jesus' parable of the prodigal son is absolutely true. Sometimes I forget I'm the prodigal son, but this week, as I read it again, the story of the prodigal son will probably jump off the page again because of Jarrad's story. And that makes me say, wow, God. And when I say wow, God, I mean the one true living God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's the one who makes my heart say,
wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
My wow God story.
I wanted to share a wow God moment.
That's my wow God story. Praise God.
And I'm so thankful to God for this wow God moment.
So, thank you, God.